Final 30-man roster is out for Samurai Japan, the most successful country in WBC history, always one of the favorites to win it all, and this year is no exception. As always, the best of Nippon professional baseball are represented here, and this time they've got the largest presence of major league players on their roster since the 2009 WBC, the last time Japan finished at the top. Looking at this team's history, you'll understand why expectations will be really high for this team. Japan won the inaugural WBC in 2006, beating Cuba in the finals. At the next edition in 2009, they won it again, topping Korea for the title. In the last two WBCs, they've had to settle for third. In 2013, they lost to Puerto Rico in the semifinals. In 2017, they were once again ousted in the semis, falling to eventual champion USA. They are the only country to finish in the top three at all four WBCs, and the only one to win it all twice. Aside from the WBC, they also won the 2019 Premier 12 and the 2020 Olympic Games, both held on their home soil. For this WBC, they'll once again be on their home soil, at least for the first two rounds. They'll host Pool B at Tokyo Dome, welcoming Korea, Australia, China, and the Czech Republic. Japan will be huge favorites to advance out of this pool. Korea will be their toughest competitor. Australia could give them a little trouble. But if they don't advance, it would be one of, if not the most shocking upsets in WBC history. If they advance out of pool play, they'll also get their second round game at Tokyo Dome, taking on a team from Pool A. If they win that game, they'll move on to the final round where they'll need 2 wins in Miami to claim the crown. Most players on this team come from NPB, Japan's own professional domestic league, the second highest level of professional baseball in the world, usually considered somewhere between AAA and Major League levels. If you follow Major League Baseball, you'll know that Japanese pitchers have a very high success rate going over there. Hitters, not so much. Some do really well, but a lot of them don't. So it's the pitchers you've got to watch out for with this team. They're bringing 2 of the best from MLB. Yu Darvish is a 2-time Cy Young runner-up, very reliable. The 36-year-old right-hander started 30 games for the Padres last year, just short of 200 innings, almost 200 strikeouts too, so about 1K per inning. A record of 16-8, an ERA of 3.10, and a whip of 9.50. Shohei Ohtani is their other major league arm. The 28-year-old right-hander had his best year as a pitcher in 2022. 28 starts, 166 innings, 219 strikeouts, led the league in strikeouts per 9 innings at 11.9, a record of 15-9, a 2.33 ERA, and a 10.12 whip, 4th in AL Cy Young voting. They've said he might be used as a reliever in this tournament, but we don't know yet. He can also hit the ball. More on that later. Those are some pretty good names for the rotation, and they may not even be their best pitchers. Yoshinobu Yamamoto, a 24-year-old right-hander, has won the Pitcher's Triple Crown the last 2 years in NPB, winning back-to-back MVP awards at the same time. In 2022, he started 26 games, threw 193 innings, 205 strikeouts, a record of 15-5, ERA 1.68, whip 9.27. Similar to the numbers Darvish and Ohtani put up when they were in NPB. His fastball averages in the mid-90s, tops out at 99. Also throws a good splitter, curve, and cutter. Another pitcher everyone in the world is waiting to see is 21-year-old right-hander Roki Sasaki. Last April, he got the baseball world's attention when he threw the first perfect game in NPB in 28 years, tying a single-game record with 19 strikeouts. Then, a week later, almost did it again. It was only his second season in the league, 20 starts, 129 innings, 173 Ks, ERA 2.02, whip 7.96. His fastball averages about 98, tops out at 1.02. He can also throw a slider, fork, and curve. Other starting pitchers on the roster, 25-year-old right-hander Hiromi Ito. Last season had a 2.95 ERA and 26 starts. He's got a fastball that gets up to 95. Shota Imanaga, 29-year-old lefty, 21 starts, 143 innings last year. ERA 2.26, whip 9.40. Hiroya Miyagi, a 21-year-old lefty, started 24 games, ERA 3.16, whip 11.26. Good, but his numbers were down from the previous year. Another lefty, Keiji Takahashi, 25 years old, made 17 starts with a 2.63 ERA and a 10.91 whip. Hiroto Takahashi, a 20-year-old right-hander, coming off his first full season, where he made 19 starts with an ERA of 2.47 and a 10.37 whip, 134 strikeouts in 116 innings. He's got a 98-mile-an-hour fastball. Some of those guys will have to go to the bullpen. I imagine they'd want Ohtani, Darvish, Yamamoto, and Sasaki as their 4 starting pitchers. If Ohtani is used as a closer, I think Imanaga would be the 4th starter, but I'm not sure about that. Other relievers are 26-year-old right-hander Ryoji Kuribayashi. Last season, 48 games, 48 innings, 59 Ks, a 1.49 ERA, and a 7.66 whip. His best pitch is his slider. 24-year-old right-hander Yuki Utagawa. A little surprised to see him on the roster. He was a rookie last year and hasn't played a full season yet. But in the 19 relief appearances he made last year, his ERA was 0.81, whip 985, 32 strikeouts in 22 innings, and he's got a 98-mile-an-hour fastball. 23-year-old right-hander Atsuki Yuasa. In his first full season last year, he had a 1.09 ERA in 58 appearances, whip 862. And 23-year-old right-hander Taisei Ota, last year's Central League Rookie of the Year, 57 appearances, 2.05 ERA, 895 whip. One pitcher you might have expected to see here is Masahiro Tanaka. 3 years ago, he had a sub-4 ERA as a starting pitcher for the New York Yankees. Then he went back to his old team in NPB, but he's simply not good enough to be on this pitching staff. Still a good pitcher in NPB, but not quite good enough. Another one who seems like he should be there is Koyo Aoyagi. He was the Central League ERA leader in 2022, but he's a sidewinder pitcher that gets batters to ground out a lot. It works in NPB but won't work against major league hitters. That was shown in the Olympics 2 years ago. He was used twice, once against the Dominican Republic and once against the USA team. Struggled both times. It would be even worse with the hitters he'd be facing in the WBC. Last week when I did the team preview for Korea, I mentioned that most of the KBO's top starting pitchers were foreign pitchers. Not the case in NPB, where all the best starting pitchers are Japanese, so they have plenty of arms to choose from, and you'll notice that aside from Darvish, all members of the pitching staff are under 30. On to the hitters. Japan is known for small ball. That's how they played in the Olympics 2 years ago. In the gold medal game against USA, it seemed like they could have blown the game open and won by a bigger margin, but they elected to go with the usual approach. And it worked, because they pitched a combined shutout. Will they do that this time? Well, with the hitters they're bringing, they shouldn't have to, but I won't be surprised if they stick with small ball. Shohei Ohtani is their most feared hitter, the 2021 American League MVP runner-up a year ago, hit 34 home runs in 2022, slashed .273, .356, .519. While his role as a pitcher is uncertain for this tournament, he'll certainly be in the lineup every game as the team's DH. They've got an all-major league outfield. Seiya Suzuki, 28-year-old right fielder for the Chicago Cubs. 2022 was his first major league season. He hit .262, .336, .433 with 14 homers in 111 games. So a decent hitter, some power, can steal but not very efficient at it. Masataka Yoshida, 29-year-old left-handed hitting outfielder, has yet to take the field in MLB, signed with the Boston Red Sox this offseason. Last year in NPB, he hit .335, .447, .561 with 21 home runs in 119 games. He was the best hitter in Pacific League last year, has been one of the best hitters for a few years now. Lars Nootbaar, a 25-year-old outfielder, will be the first player born and raised outside of Japan to play for Japan's WBC team. He's eligible from his mother being Japanese. Played in 108 games for the St. Louis Cardinals last year. Hit .228, .340, .448 with 14 home runs. Low average, high on-base percentage, a little power. He played right field most of the time last year, but also played about a dozen games each in left and center, so he's flexible. Other outfielders, 29-year-old Kensuke Kondo just signed with a new NPB team. Last year with the Fighters, he hit .302, .418, .462. A really good on-base guy. A few years ago, he had an on-base percentage of .465. Only 8 home runs last year, but that may have had a little to do with his home venue. He did hit 26 doubles. Ukyo Shuto, a versatile substitute. He can play outfield and infield. Last year he divided his time evenly between outfield and third, occasionally at second, and in past years played at short. Hitting is nothing to brag about. .267 average, .324 on base percentage. No power, slugged .365 with only 5 home runs. His strength is base stealing. He stole 22, only caught 4 times. Could make a good pinch runner late in the game. In the infield, the one everyone needs to watch is 22-year-old third baseman Munetaka Murakami. The 2022 Central League MVP hit 56 home runs last year, the second most in league history. Won the batting title with a .318 average, and led the league in RBI with 134 for the Triple Crown. On-base percentage .458, slugging .711 to lead the league in all slash line categories, and stole 12 bases. One of the best, possibly the best season from the plate in NPB history. 56 home runs would not translate to 56 in MLB, but it would translate to something. He hits well against all kinds of pitches, including fastballs in the high 90s. 2 possibilities at second base. Veteran hitter Tetsuto Yamada is one. The 30-year-old played in 130 games last year, hit 23 home runs, stole 10 bases, slashed .243, .333, .456. Those are down from his career highs a few years earlier, but still very good. He's got plenty of experience in international play. A member of Japan's gold medal Olympic team, both Premier 12 teams, and the 2017 WBC. The other option is a young one, 24-year-old Shugo Maki. In his second NPB season last year, he hit .291, .354, .507 with 24 homers in 135 games. Better offensive numbers than Yamada, but not as good defensively. Not sure who they'll go with here, both good options. A more experienced player with better defense, or a younger player with better hitting. Maki could also possibly be moved over to first. At first base, they've got 31-year-old Hotaka Yamakawa. In 129 games last year, he hit 41 home runs, most in Pacific League, second most in NPB. His line was .266, .375, .578. Good numbers, but many wonder if he can hit against major league pitchers. Another infield option is 26-year-old Kazuma Okamoto. In 140 games last season, he hit 30 home runs, second behind Murakami in Central League. He hits .252, .336, .469. So he's got power, but he doesn't hit the ball too much otherwise. He played every game at third last year, but in the past played at first and in the outfield. Yamakawa can play third as well as first. Murakami, a third baseman now, played first base in past years, so those infielders could be shuffled around. That's a lot of good hitters they've got in the infield and outfield, but here's where their weaknesses begin. The starting shortstop figures to be Sosuke Genda, a 29-year-old left-handed hitter who's won the Gold Glove the last 5 years. You couldn't ask for a better defensive player, but his hitting is not what you want for a team like this. Last year he hit .266, .317, .338. In 108 games he only had 18 extra base hits. The other shortstop they have is 26-year-old Takumu Nakano, another left-handed hitter. His hitting isn't much better, .276, .301, .346. He is a good base stealer though, swiped 23 last season. The guy they wanted here at shortstop was Hayato Sakamoto, a member of Japan's last 2 WBC teams, a good player defensively and offensively. He was battling an injury last year, missed half the season, and declined to play in the WBC. Catcher is another weakness. 30-year-old Taki Akai is their best defensive option, and he was the starting catcher for their Olympic team 2 years ago. But his hitting was terrible last year. He batted .180, on-base percentage .275, with only 1 home run in 130 games. There are some better offensive choices at catcher. 32-year-old Yuhei Nakamura played in 86 games last year with a line of .263, .334, .361. 29-year-old left-handed hitter Takumi Oshiro played in 115 games. Line was .266, .339, .416, with 13 home runs. The catcher they really wanted was Tomiya Mori, a good hitter with a little power, but he just signed with a new team during the offseason and wants to use the time to get acquainted with the pitchers he'll be working with this season. This is what their starting lineup might look like. This graphic here is not mine, by the way. It was put up by Sean Spradling on Twitter. Follow him to keep up on WBC news over there. In the outfield, there's Masataka Yoshida, Lars Nootbaar, and Seiya Suzuki. I have no doubt they will be the starting 3 in the outfield. In the infield, Munetaka Murakami, Sosuke Genda, Shugo Maki, and Hotaka Yamakawa. They might go with Tetsuto Yamada instead of Shugo Maki. Murakami and Yamakawa could be moved around. Maki could play first. Kazuma Okamoto could find himself starting one day. Depends on who they're going up against, who's hot and who's cold at the plate, etc. Yuhei Nakamura is shown as the starting catcher here, but I think they'll probably go with Taki Akai. When they announced the initial 12 members of the roster, Kai was the only catcher included. I just think they trust him behind the plate more than they do Nakamura or Oshiro. So they've got 2 weak hitters in their lineup, the catcher and the shortstop, but the defense will be great. And this is a team that'll try to beat you 1-0, not 9-7. They'll try to shut down the other team's hitting and score just a few runs to come out on top in the end. And with the pitching they've got, it could work. But remember, it only takes one of your pitchers having a bad day to ruin that sort of plan. If they give up a few runs early in the game against another good pitching team, it may be really hard for them to make a comeback. They do have some good hitters too, so I'd never count them out, but this is definitely a pitching team. And what are the chances for Samurai Japan in this tournament? Their chances of advancing out of Pool B I would put at around 98%. Really, even if they have a terrible week, I can't imagine them finishing lower than second in this pool. Something, or a lot of things, would have to go terribly wrong for that to happen. Chances of them making it out of the second round, 60%. Anything can happen there. They'll be facing a strong team, whoever it is. It's only one game, so they could get upset. But no matter who they're up against from Pool A, Japan will be the favorite. And in the final round, it's 50-50. They're every bit as good as Dominican Republic, USA, or anyone else. It'll all depend on who plays better that day. But that's just what I think. Let me know what you think down in the comments. That's all for this one, and until next time, this is Baseball International. See ya.